right, we've got these insights now, but what are we going to do with them? How do we drive revenue using these insights? Like, what are some practical examples that we did in this particular case using these insights? Because you can be tempted to find insights, especially data scientists, they'll go off and they'll find all kinds of interesting insights, but if you can't action them, it's kind of pointless. In fact, it's completely pointless because you're not going to make ROI on the money you spend on this exercise. So I'm going to go through 2 examples of what we did with this kind of insight. The first one was to encourage spending. So we determined that there are behaviors that can predict that a person is likely to jump to the next spending cluster. And that's pretty simple because we know what the cluster looks like. We know if you're in a particular cluster and you're heading towards the top of that cluster, then you're likely to be heading towards the next cluster because we know exactly what those values are. So why can't we encourage someone to jump to the next cluster by giving discounts on key products? Not just any products, but products that are the interesting or the most popular to people in the cluster above. And that's the key part. If we see people, or alternatively, if we see people in a cluster below, for example, someone in cluster 2 buying a pair of heels that we know is super popular in cluster 3, that is a good indicator that this person will eventually end up in the 3rd cluster. So what do we do with that kind of strategy? What we can do is say, okay, if a person is in a mid-value cluster, they've spent $200. To get to cluster 3, they only need to spend another $146. So why don't we take, for example, a pair of heels that's very popular in the high-value cluster, and we give an extra discount on that shoe to take someone from cluster 2 to cluster 3. Because once they end up in that cluster, more than likely they'll stay up there, and that will encourage spending. So this is an automated campaign that we built into their system, into the email marketing, where we look for a particular money value spent on an annual basis, and then if they haven't bought a particular that particular pair of shoes, we're going to give them a special discount just to encourage them to get to the next level, but without actually telling them that that's what we're doing. So that was a resulting campaign from taking those insights and translating it into something actionable. Now, the other question, going back to the challenges we talked about, how do we prevent a customer backlash? Because now we want to roll back to the original problem. We want to roll back and enforce those limits from the loyalty program, the new limits that we put. But how do we prevent people from essentially saying, oh, look, why are you doing this now? It's been 2 years, I've been enjoying these discounts. Why would you do that? They were very concerned about that, and rightly so. So there were 2 schools of thought in that company. There were people that were saying, okay, we just want no more discounts. We're going to be very harsh. We'll communicate it very directly that we are rolling back, and if you haven't spent enough to maintain that loyalty level, you'll be rolled back. And then there was the other camp that was saying, actually, let's soften it. Let's give them an extra discount to encourage the spending, and let's hope that they end up maintaining their level. And then in very small text, let's tell them that actually, we're rolling back and we're enforcing those discounts. Now, the problem with either these approaches, both are no good. One of them's too harsh, and then you'll get a massive backlash. But the second one, the one where we're going very softly and trying to communicate in a very subtle sense that they will be rolled back, is also bad, because the message is so diluted that people would ignore it. And then when they did get rolled back, and when they go in store or they try to purchase and they realize they've been rolled back to a previous, and there will be a backlash because they'll say, well, you never told us. So that was the kind of 2 theories. So I guess my question was, how do we use big data or the insights that we've gotten to actually mitigate this problem? So first thing we did is, okay, we decided that we're going to treat customers differently based on value. Now, for basically anyone in the bottom 2 clusters, they're not that valuable on an annual basis. So let's give them a 2-month grace period, and then we roll it back, and regardless. But for the high-value clusters that bring in so much money, we decided let's give them a much longer period of time to maintain their current level by spending more. So that was the first thing we decided in terms of the strategy. The second thing we decided was let's communicate to them in a very neutral way around the loyalty. So let's use something like a velocity style points, like an airline loyalty program, where it's very neutral. It's just telling you your balance and what you have, your current level and your balance. It's a very neutral way to inform a person of what they're up to. But what could we add to this that would actually incentivize. We want people to spend more. We don't want them to just look at this and go, oh, that's interesting. We want them to spend more. What we did was to say, okay, why don't we use gamification elements, which is essentially taking something that you would see in a computer game and adding it to the statement like this, where in a visual style, like a progress bar, we're showing, okay, you're at current level 1, you're nowhere near level 2, and you haven't even reached 100% of level 1, and you've only got 60 days to spend $10. It's a neutral way to explain to someone that, hey, you better spend another $10 or you're going to be rolled back. But it's also one that encourages more spending. So when someone, every time they spend, they could get this statement or on a monthly basis to encourage them, hey, look, you're close, you need to spend a bit more money and you're going to reach level 2. The points, prizes, etc. could be added later, but this concept of a progress bar means that you can add discounts to help people retain and achieve their next level. The other thing is this email, rather than being a once-off email communication, which was all about rolling people back, now it becomes a periodic thing that we can send either on a monthly basis or maybe every time they purchase, they get this email to say, hey, congratulations, you've moved up. You moved up a level or you're closer to retaining your level or getting to the next level. And then at the bottom of those communications, we can add discounts and recommended products and offers to help people get to the next level and encourage further spending. We wouldn't have thought of this idea without having done the research that we did and the insights that we did, because then we understood clearly